You might know the famous quote by Mark Twain, "Comparison is the death of joy." And although comparing is a very natural behavior and our ancestors have been doing it since thousands of years in order to survive, this quote couldn't be more relevant. Because when our desire to compare is supercharged by algorithms that show us content that is so irresistible and so addicting that we become slaves of these programs, then we really have a problem. When I look back at my own behavior, the reason why I'm so addicted to social media is because it opens to me a world where I see the places I want to go, I see the experiences I want to make, and I see the things I want to have. And therefore, I'm constantly in joyful anticipation for the next rush of dopamine, for the next sensational piece of content. And this is especially dangerous if you're in a point of your life where you're not so satisfied with the status quo, and social media becomes more or less the last refuge of reality where you can just let yourself fall into and discover this fictional world. And although everything can be addicting, this is especially true for the smartphone. Because just imagine you would lose your smartphone today. How would you feel? And the reason why it is so addicting and why we are so dependable on it is, on the one hand side, it has a lot of functional benefits. For example, doing your finances, or being able to schedule your calendar, or even being able to take selfies of yourself in the gym. But on the other hand, it's also the interface to this world of social media, which is just a swipe of our fingers away and which really gets us. And this mainly boils down to the fact that some of the smartest people in the world are spending hours and hours of their valuable time to make these platforms and these apps as addictive as possible. So as soon as we want to use our phones for functional purposes, there are thousands or hundreds of little baits that pull us into this social media vortex and that we get tangled up and caught in without us even noticing it. And of course, there are some initial prerequisites you can do to recalibrate your phone, for example, organizing your apps and things like this. In case you're interested, you can check out this video up here, but that's not what I want to talk about today. Today I want to talk about certain tactics you can implement to not even be tempted to grab your phone. Because if you don't grab your phone, you already tamed the beast to the largest extent. And I'm not saying here to take super extreme measures like getting rid of your phone completely. Although this can be really good to establish a new baseline, let's say you do a 5-day detox of your smartphone, I don't think it's a sustainable solution. So without any further ado, my 5 behavioral tips that hopefully can help you to reduce your smartphone addiction as well. Alright, so my first tip is to use more single-purpose items. Do you remember the alarm clock you used to have next to your bed, or the calculator used in school for algebra? Although tech makes a lot of things easier and there's a certain value in combining a lot of tools into one, I still believe it's very important to have some tools which only can fulfill one specific task. And why this is so important is because there is no chance that you get distracted to do other things, to get pulled into the social media vortex. So for example, I'm not gonna check out puppies on Instagram for 30 minutes just because I wanted to look what time it is. So I strongly encourage you to get single-purpose items, especially an alarm clock, a timer, and maybe even a wristwatch, because this really reduces the frequency in which you check out your smartphone. The second tip I want to give you is to create fixed time slots for using your phone. Generally speaking, I think that creating things and consuming things are legitimate behaviors. One is not worse than the other. I really like to consume content. I think it's very relaxing, it's very inspirational, and it's also informative, but I've came to the conclusion that it's super important to define time slots in which you do these things, because otherwise you will be glued to your screen the whole day, and that's not really good. So what does that mean? It means to assign fixed time slots in which you can access your phone. So for example, what worked well for me is to do it during breakfast once, during lunch once, and during dinner once. And only in these times I try to answer to messages, for example. So let's say you don't answer to messages every time a new message pops up. So you just wait and badge it, and then you do it once or twice or thrice a day and just answer everything. And this also means that you should outsource all relevant productivity productivity tools which you use in a higher frequency. So for example, if you check your mails very often on your phone, just make sure to have it on your laptop when you're working with your laptop. Or if you get a lot of calls, make sure to get a headset so that you don't always have to pick up your phone. And this has proven to be a very powerful tactic, especially in times where you have to be very focused because you have a project coming up or you have something to submit. Then it can be really helpful to assign these fixed time slots. Alright, so the third tip I want to give you guys is to define phone-free areas. And a good way to picture this is, imagine you have a bowl of marshmallows or a bowl of chips standing next to you while you are on a diet. And for the first couple of hours, you'll probably have the willpower to fend off eating them. But sooner or later, when your willpower is depleted, you will just get all over those chips or those marshmallows and binge them. And the same thing applies more or less to your phone. So what I found out is that it's super important to have phone-free areas, especially on your working space and your sleeping space. So a really good way to get started with this tip is to remove your phone from your bed area. That means you will not be tempted to use your phone as an alarm clock, for example, or surf the web if you can't fall asleep, for example. And this is a very, very powerful tip, and I strongly encourage you to try it out. Alright, so the fourth tip I want to give you is to consciously introduce cheat days for your smartphone. And what really helped me to understand this is to see your brain a bit like a muscle. And let's say you want to train your biceps, for example, and you design a regimen where you train 7 days a week for 52 weeks a year. What do you think will happen? So most probably you won't have time to recover. That means your biceps won't get stronger, and the chance that you will fail holding through these whole 52 weeks is pretty high. And the same thing also applies to being focused and being concentrated and disciplined, and therefore the concept of cheat days for your mind is also really important. So let's say you do a cheat day once a week, and the last 6 days you've been really disciplined and have focused on sticking to your rules and avoiding the things I mentioned. Then it will be super powerful that you can indulge in the 7th day, and you will kind of create an upward spiral, which is not only beneficial for your productivity but also for your overall satisfaction and contentment. The fifth and final tip I want to give you is to try to seek real-life interaction wherever you can. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because it can be very tempting to pull out your phone and, for example, if you're having dinner with somebody, just check out the mail or play a round of Candy Crush under your desk. Or when you go somewhere, it can be really tempting to avoid communicating with others and just checking out Google Maps, for example. And what's really powerful is to try to avoid that. So, for instance, leave your phone at home on some days and just go out in the world and see what happens. Or instead of watching a movie in the evening or checking out Netflix in the evening, ask your friends or your family if they want to play a round of board games, for example. And that's really powerful because it fosters social interaction and it just makes you happier than checking out your phone. Alright peeps, here you have it. 5 behavioral tips that can help you to cure your phone addiction. And also a bonus tip here from my side, it can be really powerful to understand why you are behaving in a certain way. It's a bit like drawing a map of a route you can take and understanding what the outcome is if you choose route A or choose route B. So if you are in a clinical environment or you are in a very clear and mindful state, try to ask yourself, what are you getting out of checking your phone 100 times a day? Is it something that is lasting and is creating contentment, or is it rather something that is impulsive and is just creating instant gratification? And at least it sometimes works for me, because sometimes, of course, I'm also really tempted to just check my phone and break the rules I've set up to myself. But if I start asking myself this question, it can be really powerful. But of course, I also fail sometimes, and I also can't hold my instant gratification need back, for example. But I don't think it's so dramatic. The good thing is if you start working on yourself and you start embarking on this journey, and then you have already done the most important step. So in case you could gain anything out of this video, please make sure to hit the subscribe button. It helps me a lot in making these videos. And apart from that, I hope you have a great day and see you soon. Peace.